We may have lost Rachel.
I'm here. I'm so
there she is.
sorry.
Okay.
Hello, friends. I had a very brief internet interruption, but welcome to our meeting for worship on Zoom again. Do we have any introductions or birthdays?
My sister is joining me, Molly. You can say hi to her. Hi.
Ron's birthday is on Tuesday the 10th. Oh, Wednesday the 10th, sorry.
What?
Did we have any other birthdays that we should celebrate? Let's sing. Any other introductions?
Rachel, I would like to introduce Lucy Dennis, my granddaughter, who lives here in Yellow Springs. We're in the same pod, so we're able to be together in this space on Sunday mornings, and she will be doing some song leading for us, as I'm not a singer. Hopefully this will help encourage everyone to sing out at home.
Yes, thanks for joining us, Lucy. If there are no others, I'm going to pass it on to Jerry.
Good morning, everyone. Today's scripture is going to reference resting and simplicity. So I would like people, it's a show and tell opportunity. Now, I would like people to think of ways that you help you sleep or rest or stay calm. I know when the girls were little, my show and tell, sometimes they would go and grab something to help them sleep. And I know of people who, to stay calm, do yoga or meditation or other mindful practices. So it's a show and tell opportunity. So who would like to show and tell what they do to help them sleep or stay calm or rest?
Well, it's not show and tell, but when I'm really stressed, if I can help allow myself to stop and just breathe.
Yes. Thank you for sharing. Yes.
Molly and I are working on needlepoint.
All right. That is calming. Yes. Children,
I like to read.
Things. Oh, go ahead, Rachel. What do you do?
I like to read.
Great. Some of the children, what do you do to help you sleep or rest or stay calm? What are some things you do? Well, anyone else want to share what they do?
I have a pillow that lives in my office that Becky Bowman made for me. It's got these fun birds on one side and flowers on the other.
Oh, yeah. Neat. Marianne, were you going to share something?
I just like to read a good book. Now, if you want to go to sleep, you don't want to read an exciting book, but at night, it's easy for me to fall asleep when I want to read.
Thank you for sharing.
We listen to sometimes meditation apps, maybe listen to, yep, exactly. There's all kinds of choices there. And to de-stress, sometimes I'll play all different kinds of music, not necessarily to sleep, but to get through it.
Right. Thank you.
Ditto on that for me.
Yes.
Julie has reminded me that when my kids were little, I used to sing to them before they went to sleep. However, the only genre that they would fall to sleep with were these folk songs, usually about murder or sung from the perspective of the dead person. Long black veil, things like that.
Thank you for sharing.
Crosby has a book that he and Charlie like to read at night. It's called Calm Ninja. And in the book, the ninja learns a special ninja yoga flow that helps him be calm.
Oh, wow. Thanks for sharing that. That's a great idea. Yeah. Are you showing us it? Oh, thank you for sharing. Yeah, that sounds great.
I've listened to music a lot in this pandemic, and that helps a lot.
Great. Thank you. Absolutely. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for sharing what keeps you calm and helps you rest and sleep. So thank you so much.
Hi, friends. Thanks, everybody, for sharing. Today, we're going to center down like we always do at the beginning of our service. So we're going to do this together. And it sounds like everyone has their own techniques already for how they begin that process of calming down. And it reminds me that like one of the main parts of being a friend is learning when to speak up and when to be quiet. So now that some of us have had a chance to talk, we're going to start to do that winding down, to center down, to listen to God's voice. And so that means we're going to be closing our mouths and maybe our eyes too. And we're going to be opening up our ears and our hearts to listen, to hear what God says. And one way we can do this is when we pay attention to our breath. And our lungs are breathing for us all the time, and we don't even think about it. But you might notice that when you do start to think about the air going in and out of your lungs, you do start to relax and breathe a little bit deeper and start to settle into the space around you. So why don't we do this together, if you would like, and start by just breathing in through your nose and breathing out. Breathing in through your nose and breathing out. And maybe the next time you do it, you start to fill the air in your belly and bring it all the way up to your lungs. And then when you exhale, maybe your shoulders get a little bit looser. You start to wiggle into your seat a little bit better. And let's breathe in one more time together and breathe out. And as you do this, let your ears open. Maybe let your eyes soften their gaze or close them. And open your heart. And let's begin to listen to what God is telling us as we center down.
Thank you, friends. I'm going to pass it on to Barb and Lucy, who have our first song for the day.
Good morning, friends. Griffin and Max and Sarah are going to be reading our scripture passage this morning. Griffin is sharing one story about Jesus, and Max and Sarah are splitting the second story. And both stories are about the Sabbath, an ancient practice of taking one day out of 7 for rest and recreation. Jesus takes for granted, as all Jewish teachers of his time would have, that we should observe a Sabbath rest. He says that he's Lord of the Sabbath, though, and that it's always better to save a life than to destroy one. So as you listen to the scripture reading, think about how you cultivate times of rest.
One Sabbath day, Jesus was walking through some grain fields. His followers picked the heads of grain, rubbed them in their hands, and ate them. Some Pharisees said, "Why are you doing that? It is against the law of Moses to do that on the Sabbath day." Jesus answered, "Haven't you read about what David did when he and those with him were hungry? David went into God's house. He took the bread that was made holy for God and ate it, and he gave some of the bread to the people with him. This was against the law of Moses. It says that only priests can eat that bread." Then Jesus said to the Pharisees, "The Son of Man is Lord of the Sabbath day."
On another Sabbath day, Jesus went to the sign, I don't know how to say that, and was teaching. A man with a crippled right hand was there. The teachers of the law and Pharisees were watching to see if Jesus would heal on the Sabbath day. They wanted to see Jesus do something wrong so that they could accuse him, but he knew what they were thinking.
To the man with the crippled hand, "Get up and stand before these people." The man got up and stood there. Then Jesus said to them, "I ask you, which is it right to do on the Sabbath day? To do good or to do evil? Is it right to save a life or to destroy one?" Jesus looked around at all of them and he said to the man, "Let me see your hand." The man stretched out his hand, and it was completely healed. The Pharisees and the teachers of the law became very angry. They said to each other, "What can we do to Jesus?"
Good morning. Can you hear me? For the next few weeks, I'm going to be sharing some information about the Quaker testimonies. First, we need to know, what are Quaker testimonies? And Quakers believe in living life in the spirit of love, truth, and peace by being the best person that you can be, and to recognize that of God and everyone else. The testimonies help discover the truth through our relationship with God. They're not rigid, they're not written down, and they're not rules that you have to follow, okay? So each of you are going to find the best way to practice these testimonies in each of your own lives. And practice is the important word here. I think all of you children have sports and activities and things that you participate in that you have to practice. You might do gymnastics, you might do ballet, you might practice music or playing the piano or in sports. So all of you know what practice is, and you know that you do the best you can because you make that commitment. But the other thing you have to remember is you have to be tender with yourself and with others if you fail to meet your goals that right away. And it's the same thing with testimonies. So you need to be trying to be ready to try again and live that life in the spirit of love and truth and peace, as the Quakers want you to. So this week I chose to talk about simplicity. It's not because it's simple. And it may be the most difficult testimony to master. And the reason is everyone has a different definition of what does simplicity mean. I have a definition that I think might make sense and be simple to understand. Quakers believe that we're always trying to get better things. We can't forget to be good people. I want to repeat that because I think it's real important. Quakers believe that if we're always trying to get better things, we can forget to be good people. Sometimes we keeping a lot of fancy things, clothes and toys, can get in the way of doing the work that we need to be doing. And sometimes we began to think that our things are more important than people or God. So today, I'm going to share with you a story, a book, excuse me, I'm sorry, about simplicity. It's called The Perfectly Orderly House. It's written by Ellen Kent McKenzie and illustrated by Megan Lloyd. So I'm going to try to share screen now.
I hope you enjoy it. Here we go. The Perfectly Orderly House by Ellen Kent McKenzie, illustrated by Megan Lloyd. There was an old woman who lived in a small bit of a house. The house would have been just right, for she was a small bit of a woman, except she could throw nothing away. For she said, "What you throw away today, you will surely need tomorrow." Except at last the house was so crowded, the old woman could not find a thing that she needed.
Well done.
One day
Well
she
done.
cried, "It takes me so long hunting for what I've saved, I'd never get anything done. I never have time for a party. I need a bit more orderly house." So she thought, and then she decided there is nothing more orderly than the alphabet. Everything I have begins with one letter or another. I'll just put it all in the order of the ABCs. So she arranged everything in her closet, aprons, blouses, coats, and the cupboard, bowls, cups, dinner plates, and the icebox, eggs, fudge, garlic. And so she did with everything else in her house. But though it was orderly, she could not always get at what she wanted. One day she cried, "I need my quilt, but it is under the piano," because quilt starts with Q and that comes after P. Piano starts with P. "This won't do. I need a big house with all the rooms in the order of the alphabet. Everything that starts with A will go into the A room. Everything that starts with B will go into the B room. That will be orderly." She called her brother Sam, who was a carpenter, and asked him to build her a perfectly orderly house. "First room first, Sam," she told him. "Start here beside the fence and build the attic."
So as I listened to that part of the story, there was one line or two that stuck out to me, and it takes so long to hunt for what I saved that I never have time to get anything done. I never have time for a party. So I want you to think about your stuff, your clothes, your shoes, your games, your toys, your electronic devices, and wonder, do you ever have lots? Do you ever spend a lot of time looking for the things you want? How can you simplify that job and make more time for your family and friends? So I have a suggestion. You could give away the things that you do not need to a child or children who might need those things. But how can you simplify that process? You need to decide what things you need and what things you want. So should you build a house with rooms with each letter in the alphabet? That would be silly. However, you could make two piles, one for needs and one for wants. Wouldn't that be fun if each of the piles were stacked in alphabetical order? Well, I'll leave that up to you, but practicing simplicity could be a fun activity to do with the whole family. So now let me tell you how it worked for this little old woman in the book. She placed everything in the proper place in the location in the new house, and then decided that she could have her party now that she's always wanted. She decided to bake a cake. So the eggs were in the entryway, the butter and the baking soda were in the basement. The milk was not in the music room because it was in the refrigerator in the rumpus room. And the sifter, the salt, and the sugar were in the study. Well, you can guess where the baking utensils and the dishes and the pans were located. Finally, she made her way to the observatory to bake the cake batter in the oven. Well, the guest had a challenge too. The tea was on the tennis court, the cake and the cold cuts and the cookies were in the closet, the appetizers were in the attic, the hamburgers were in the hallway, and the ice cream was in the igloo, yada, yada, yada. So anyway, finally, the party's over, everyone went home, and now I'm going to play the rest of the story.
Sam, build your house, and thank you for having such a nice party, everyone said. We've never had so much fun. The old woman waved goodbye from the attic. I've never had so much fun either, she said, but I'm tired. I'll put things in order after I have a cup of tea. Then she sighed, but I'm too tired to walk to the tennis court, or to the quiet room, or even to put my glasses in the garage. All I want to do is rock in my rocking chair, but that's in the rumpus room. Suddenly she remembered, I never did move the rocking chair back to the rumpus room. Sam is so stubborn. Where did he put it? Did he take it back to my old house? She went down the attic steps and crossed the grass to her old wee bit of a house and opened the door. Sam, she cried, what a perfectly orderly house this is. I thought it was just what you wanted, Sam said. Then he gave her a kiss and whistled his way home. And Sam was right. It was what she wanted all along.
So the little old lady found a new home for her belongings and peace and quiet in her old, perfectly orderly house. And now her life was much simpler and she could have some time to rest. So I have an assignment for you. It's a query really, but we'll talk about queries later. Ask yourself, if I could save 1 hour today, the Sabbath, that I'm not looking for the things that are hard to find because I have too many things, would I spend the time, who would I spend the time with, and what would we do? So remember to practice simplicity and enjoy your Sabbath.
If everyone's seeing the share, I'm going to go ahead and start the Kahoot.
Should we unmute ourselves to have fun and I can read questions, or is this a video we're sharing?
It would be helpful to have someone read questions, but I don't see the PIN number. Is that coming?
It's coming.
Okay.
All right, I'll put the PIN number in the chat. Right, Luke 6 and simplicity. In the first story about Jesus, his disciples were snacking on kernels of grain, grapes, fish sticks, or olives. Kernels of grain.
Sorry.
All right.
It's goober. Oh, that's
Jesus
correct.
said, Jesus said, the Son of Man is blank of the Sabbath. Singer, servant, farmer, Lord. Lord of the Sabbath. True or false? Jesus also healed a man's hand on Sabbath.
We all knew that. Well,
True. When we remember that things are less important than people and God, we're practicing equality, integrity, simplicity, or community. Simplicity. When I need to rest, one thing I do is type your answer.
Type what you do and you rest. Yes.
Ooh, some good responses. All right. Oh man, way to go.
Way to go, Griffin. I have a hard time with resting because there is just so much to do. This world includes people with no place to sleep indoors, and people who don't know that both girls and boys can do anything, and people who think that who you love might make you a bad person. And I would just want to work all of the time to fix all of this, but I can't. I have to rest. And maybe you just had maple syrup on your pancakes, or maybe you just ate a cinnamon roll, and right now you have a lot of energy, but you're going to need to rest too. You'll need a nap. You'll need to go to bed. God made the whole world in 6 days, as the story goes, and then God rested on the seventh day. God, the almighty being who brought all of this into existence, every tree and flower and bug, God rested to show us how we should live. You know, if even God rested, probably we need to take a break sometimes too. Rest sometimes is just what the gospel looks like. time to rest is really a blessing. We have lots of other blessings to think about. Kevin is doing the blessing box this morning, so I'm going to pass it off to him.
Thank you, Julie. I feel like most of us probably are up to speed with the blessing box, but it's, in case you're not, just a container where we're encouraged to put blessings and good things that are going on in our lives in some kind of container to be look back at later in the year. Would anyone be willing to share a blessing that they may have put in their blessing box from this week?
I got my first COVID vaccine shot, and that was a blessing. But even a greater blessing was the friend who helped me figure out where to get it, because the health department had used up all their appointments, and we found another place.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing, Jenny Lou. Anyone else?
I got to knit with my almost 83-year-old grandmother yesterday, and we haven't done that in years. So that was a really delightful part of my week.
One blessing that I had this week was early in the week, the beauty of the snow falling. It was so nice. I was afraid we might have gotten through winter without much of that. Anyone else to share? Well, thank you for sharing, and please keep adding to your blessing box, and someone will be giving us all the opportunity to share again next week, I'm sure.
Friends, do we have other praises and concerns to share? I had a concern to share. I talked with Kent Pickard this morning, and his grandson Chase has COVID, and so caught it at school, he thinks, and just so Kenny and Robin's house is under quarantine, and he just wants you to keep Chase in your prayers.
Hey Julie, this is Shelby. I am getting better day by day, so like that's praise. Still have about a week and 2 days before my post-op appointment. But that is a praise for me. A concern that I do have is my coworker's husband has COVID, and he is very, very sick. He is at Clinton Memorial Hospital. They did a convalescent blood transfusion. I believe that was 2 days ago, just a couple days ago, and they were hoping that that was going to work, and it did not. He actually got worse, and he was then admitted that night with 80% oxygen. So they are keeping him for a minimum of 3 days, and they don't know what's going to happen. They're just trying to monitor and give him oxygen and treat him. But if you guys could please keep John and Bev Byrice in your prayers. She is in quarantine for 14 days, so we did close the museum. We're not open to the public, which is probably good right now, but all of our work has come to a halt for 2 weeks. But we just want John to get better. If you guys could keep him in your prayers.
If you could keep my grandpa in your prayers, I would appreciate it. He was hospitalized this weekend. He had some heart attack-like symptoms. He had just received his COVID shot, and he came out negative for COVID. So that's really exciting. But he's doing a little bit better now, but it was really nerve-wracking for us because he had been putting off this heart surgery that he was supposed to have because of COVID. Like many people have done, he was afraid of going into the hospital and contracting COVID. So we were kind of worried, like, oh no, should he not have put this off? But it looks like he's on the road to recovery, and hopefully he can get that surgery. So any prayers would be appreciated. Thanks.
Do we have other praises and concerns this morning? If not, the Stuckert family is going to lead us in prayer.
All right, we've practiced this a grand total of 1 time, so we'll see how this goes. Okay, you guys ready? We can use our hands to remember the parts of a prayer. Will you pray with us? God, our thumbs remind us to be thankful for our family and friends, protect them and give them joy, heal those who are sick or having a hard time. And you guys say?
God, hear our prayer. God, hear our prayer.
Good job. God, thank you for our leaders and teachers who point the way for us to go. Give them rest and clear minds. Help us to listen. And you guys say? What do you guys say?
God, hear our prayer. God, hear our prayer.
Thank you. God, thank you for our big, beautiful world. Thank you for the snow to play in, the seeds for the birds to eat, and all the people who help keep it clean and safe. And you guys say?
God, hear our prayer.
God, strengthen those who feel weak, those who are sick or struggling, and those who are lonely or sad. Help me to see them and offer help when I am able. And you guys say?
God, hear our prayer.
God, help us to learn your ways, surround us with good friends, and make us strong in mind, body, and spirit. And you guys say?
God, hear our prayer.
And then we all say, Amen.
Thank you. I'm going to pass it on to Amanda, who has our next reading after Julie.
Actually, yeah, I know that the kids are going to their breakout room now, and as they are doing that, I'd like to take a little bit of time to regroup. I am still working on how to time out having more children's activities without coming to the end of the service and not having time for anything else. And I'm aware that after worship, we have meeting for business. And so I don't want to just run over and then not have time to spaciously consider the business before the meeting. So if it's okay, we had a reading, and then we had a poem, and then a sermon. And what I would really like to do is include the 2 readings that we would have shared in the next email so that you can see them, and then give you a shorter version of the message and move into waiting worship. Does anyone have a massive objection to this? Are you just really committed to hearing a passage from Walter Brueggemann, or? Okay. It looks like we are okay with that. And yeah, like I said, I hope that this gets better each week so that we can do things that are interactive without taking up the whole time. So 6 days a week we work. And on the 7th day, God opens up the door and invites everyone into the banquet. And for a lot of us, Sabbath is a pretty unfamiliar concept. It's associated with memories of stores not being open on Sundays, maybe a lingering sense that some activities are not appropriate for Sundays, but the idea of Sabbath as a gift and a discipline is pretty foreign. But for the Jews of the exilic era, though, Sabbath was a rebellion. The Babylonian Empire that they served in demanded their daily labor, but they hearkened back to this ancient story about God choosing rest. And then they resisted by choosing rest for themselves. So friends, I want you to think this morning about how you are choosing rest. So on the seventh day, Jesus was passing through some wheat fields, and his disciples began plucking these heads of grain, rubbing them between their hands and eating the seeds. They're traveling through someone else's field, but the problem there wasn't trespassing. And they were grabbing food from someone else's field as they walked by, and that wasn't the problem either. It was theft if you just straight up harvested a field of grain that didn't belong to you. But it was also theft if you kept travelers from snacking as they went by. Hungry folks were legally allowed to take what they needed. But this action of rubbing the wheat kernels between the hands, though, that is technically threshing, and that is work, and work is not allowed on the Sabbath. Because Sabbath is about stopping work. It's a whole day of just letting go, of letting, and a whole day of just letting go is an essential witness to bear against a 24/7 culture of work that controls us, which isn't just some modern capitalist invention. You know, religions are not in the habit of making up rules against things that no one wants to do anyway. The economic systems of agrarian Palestine, exile in Babylon, life in the provinces of the Roman Empire, these were all quite different from our own. But that underlying drive to never stop hustling hasn't really changed. So no work, definitely no threshing. But what are the disciples supposed to do then? Just be hungry? We sometimes come into these gospel stories with the idea that the Pharisees were all about rules and Jesus was all about love instead. I know I fall into that kind of interpretation sometimes. It's not a nuanced read of the story, and it's a bit anti-Semitic to suggest that the teachers of the Jewish law just didn't understand their subject very well. The Sabbath laws could always be set aside if a life was in danger, and lots of rabbis would have agreed that making sure that you can get something to eat is more important than rigidly following the rules. As with a lot of his teachings, Jesus isn't really outside of the rabbinic norm here. But elsewhere in the Gospels, Jesus reminds us that the teachers of the law needed to remember that the Sabbath is made for people, not the people for the Sabbath. Sabbath is a gift and a discipline, not a burden. It's not an arbitrary set of rules, it's a demand made in love to rest. We know how this operates in other ways. Musical pieces can't just be constant noise, unrelenting. The rests are an essential part of the music. White space left over in design lets the eye rest, and it improves perception and memory. Physical training isn't best done by pushing for maximum exertion every single day. You have to rest. Frivolity turns out to be a serious subject. I thought about digging up a whole bunch of statistics to put here to convince you of my point, but I kind of doubt that you need convincing. Sabbath rest is a gift because it is one side of a healthy life, meaningful work, and the ability to let it go for a while. It's a discipline because we are so apt to think that we matter because our work matters, that we have value because we are creating value. And Sabbath says that nothing can be further from the truth. The world has work for us to do, but it's also here to be enjoyed, and God commands us to do both. Here's a funny wrinkle, though, as we are thinking about the Sabbath. What do we mean by work? I mean, obviously, there's the things that you do in exchange for money definition, but that doesn't really cover it. Taking care of kids is work, for instance. And no religious tradition that I'm familiar with encourages adults to just kick them out of the house for an entire day every week. Not taking care of you anymore, that's work. Or if a designer is taking a day off, are they allowed to go to an art museum, or would that also be work? Schoolwork is clearly work for children, but what about grueling sports seasons or theater responsibilities for weeks on end? Is that work or is it play? I don't think there's any way that we could construct a list of rules that would cover every situation that each of us faces. In fact, I think it's kind of unlikely that the Sabbath regulations in the Torah have ever done so either. Whatever the rules may be, the gift is in cultivating a Sabbath kind of mindset. In a conversation with Quaker pastors this week, Scott Wagner of Deep River Friends Meeting offered a 4-part structure for discipleship that I found pretty compelling: formation, fruitfulness, faithfulness, and functionality. We begin by cultivating inward disciplines, and then we start to see the fruit of our formation. We continue faithfully in that work, and we eventually achieve a functional response. And Scott pointed out that as friends and as observant people in general who see so much that needs to be done in the world, we tend to want to start at the end of that discipleship process. We want to get things done. And there's nothing wrong with that impulse, but as we are being shaped in the image of Christ, functionality is the end goal, not the first step. You have to start with formation. And that understanding of formation, I think, is at the core of taking Sabbath seriously. In order to be people of sustained and meaningful work, whatever that work may be, we have to be formed internally by repeated rhythms of work and rest. Sabbath is time that refocuses us, that broadens our vision. It's time for waiting, for listening a little extra carefully for still small voices. And apparently there's nothing all that wrong with grabbing a snack along the way. On another Sabbath, Jesus went to the meeting place and taught. There was a man there with a crippled right hand. The religion scholars and the Pharisees had their eyes on Jesus to see if he would heal the man, hoping to catch him in a Sabbath violation. He knew what they were up to, and he spoke to the man with the crippled hand. "Get up and stand here before us." And he did. And then Jesus addressed them. "Let me ask you something. What kind of action suits the Sabbath best? Doing good or doing evil? Helping someone or leaving them helpless? What is permitted on the Sabbath? Doing good or doing evil? Well, doing good, of course. And it's rest and recreation that enable us to recognize how good the work is. What is permitted or destroying it? Saving life, always. And it's the times of rest and joy that show us how precious life is. The two, they always go hand in hand. How are you cultivating rhythms of rest, friends, for yourself and for those within your care? Are all hearts clear? Take it away, Barb.
Thank you. Chris is going to have our benediction whenever you're ready.
The Lord give us peace in our going out and our coming in, in our lying down and in our rising up, in our labor and in our leisure, in our laughter and in our tears, until we come to stand before him on that day to which there is no sunset and no dawn. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
You're muted, Barb. We can't hear you, Barb. We can't hear you. No. No, sorry.
Oh dear.
There, I heard something.
Can you hear?
Yes.
Oh, I'm